as Karen mentioned, I'm the product manager at Lark, and a couple of my presentation is called Sleeping Together. A little bit about Lark first. Lark is actually it's a silent alarm clock and sleep sensor combination. So the idea is that you wear it, you go to sleep, and then it vibrates to wake you up in the morning, and it connects via Bluetooth to your phone, and you get all your sleep data for that evening. And it was actually started, some interesting stories here, it was actually started by my fiance, Julie. So I like to take credit for the impetus for this company, because it all started when we were actually in grad school together at MIT, and I really wanted to wake up early every morning to like get up and go run and do stuff like 6 a.m., 5:30 or 6 a.m., but I really couldn't do it. So I kept snoozing. I would snooze every 20 minutes, and she hated that. She said, "I'm going to buy you a silent alarm clock." I said, "Go ahead," and so she bought me one. It wasn't very good. And she said, "I'm going to make one." And I said, "Whatever, have fun with it. Go do that." And she ended up actually working on it really hard and dropped out the year after 1 year, and now I work for her. Tables have turned. She proved me wrong. I did not believe that it was going to happen, but it did. So yeah, this is the Lark right here. Pretty simple. It's meant to be lightweight. It's a user-friendly product. We're in Apple stores worldwide, and doing pretty well. So my experiment was actually pretty early on when I started. At the company, I started using Lark, and I was tracking my sleep, and I realized it would be really interesting to compare how we were affecting each other's sleep. I kind of already had this suspicion. I knew that she was always stealing the blanket, because I'd always wake up in the middle of the night and be really cold. But I was curious to see, if we were affecting each other's sleep. So now that she's not here to defend herself, I can show you some data, see what I actually came up with. So the Lark uses actigraphy, so it's basically motion tracking. So the more you move around, essentially, the more awake you tend to be. There's a strong correlation. It's more complicated than that. There's some algorithms in there, but that's the general feel of it. So this is actually data that I pulled from our system and threw it up on an Excel chart. So pretty crude. Sorry for the crudeness of this presentation in general. Here you can see my sleeping patterns. You can see that I kind of have a few spikes in the middle of the night. I'm pretty dead when I fall asleep. But then towards the morning I start to wake up. You can see her sleeping patterns. It was generally a lot more. She has a lot bigger movement spikes. She tends to move around quite a bit and just move around more during the night. And I tried, first experiment was just to overlay them and see what it looked like. And those little orange arrows show you all the points where it's pretty, you can kind of this is really not very scientific. So, but you can kind of tell where things are overlapping. You can see it looks as though there's a pretty strong connection between, her peaks and my peaks. You can see here and there, and here and there. And here are a couple more of those. You can see that, I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but these peaks really seem to overlap. But it's hard to say for sure. Is there really some sort of connection there? And here's one more shot. You can, especially when she has these big spikes and goes and wakes up, it's pretty obvious that I'm waking up as well. And so I thought I'd have a little fun and put an annotated version out there. And so you can see that red spike right there is when Julia goes to sleep after watching her crappy TV shows, which I don't approve of. And I kept on this particular night, I kept working until about 1:10 because she's a slave driver. Even when she's asleep, she's making me work. And then in the middle of the night, you can actually see that there's kind of this back and forth where one person moves and the other person seems to move. There's kind of these very closely connected peaks there. Interesting point. This was sunrise on that particular day, and you can see there's a lot more movement. I think I'm pretty sensitive to light. And then when we woke up, I was still quite tired because we woke up at the same time. But there's kind of the question here: who's actually disturbing who in this particular case, right? Like, who is it? Who's is it her? Or is it me? So I did some fairly unscientific analyses to see who possibly try to guess who was affecting who. So the first one is just trying to look at. I basically looked at points in time. So the way the Lark works is it takes a sample every minute. It's lumped into 1 minute epochs, and you could see that there are certain times where one person would move and the other would move immediately after, and you can't necessarily say that's cause and effect, but I marked those as red marks. So saying like, okay, in this you can see that on the right hand side is Julia's, and the left hand side are mine. So you can see there's a couple for me, but there's about 5 where it seems like she affected me, where it was like her waking first, then me waking after. And these yellow ones just show where it was kind of neutral. It was hard to tell, hard to pick apart who was causing what. I did another look at it. This is not a great way to look at it necessarily, but I basically subtracted my sleeping pattern from hers. So you can see here that there's obviously I'm waking up less. That you saw from most of those patterns before. That it's generally I'm waking up quite a bit less than she is. I don't know if this actually shows anything, to be honest. And then I tried to do one more experiment, and that was just to see what happened when we slept apart. So I put our data together. And you can actually see that those peaks that were strongly connected in the earlier slides, it seems like those were actually connected wake-ups, because here you can almost see no overlap at all. There's kind of just randomness. So after my incredibly thorough analysis, I concluded that I'm the one, and that I have been vindicated. That's basically the conclusion of my experiment. But in the end, I think she's actually the real winner because she's my boss and tells me what to do. A couple of quick bonus slides just for fun. I threw together all my sleep nights for about a month just to see if there were any patterns in terms of where I wake up. Nothing really discernible here. This is kind of interesting. I did some analysis where I lumped it together into 2-minute chunks. There seemed to be these like wave-like rolling patterns. This is the time when I went to sleep, so don't count that. But I'm generally dead asleep in this period. There's some kind of wakefulness happening here and a little bit here around like sunrise time. So it's kind of interesting. But that's it. So last bonus is if you want, there's a discount codes for anyone who wants to pick up a Lark, and come talk to me afterwards also. Any questions? Sure.
2 words, separate coil, 3 words, separate coiled mattresses. So since this is based on movement, do you see potentially testing this on different mattresses? Because different mattresses literally would affect the other person to a greater degree or a lesser degree. If you have separately coiled mattress, which we've perfected, you don't really move the other person when you move at night.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, we switched to latex after doing this experiment. It helped a lot.
Because the sheet doesn't move as much, so there's the sheet layer.
It's like a the whole thing doesn't can't wiggle like this. Right. The force more drains directly down to kind of a pyramid shape into the base, instead of there being a rigid top surface and then the whole thing floating on springs. I mean, obviously 2 separate springs is good, but then you have this kind of weird little, don't come onto my side.
Just have shared sheets, so if someone pulls sheets, they solve the mattress problem.
I mean, the best is to go to sleep completely in like a netted building.
But different people have different levels of susceptibility. My wife practically sleeps on top of me and she's a mover. It just does not affect me at all, whereas if an alarm or somebody opens a car door outside, I'm awake. So different people have different things. So if we got enough data from enough people, we figure out different people are triggered by different things, right?
That'd be pretty interesting.
Well, the other thing with Jeff, you talked about the sunrise,
Oh, yeah.
and it was like looking at the light in your room and whether you actually can structure that differently so that you have less light coming through in sunrise?
Yeah.
That's something to explore as
Yeah,
well,
it's
for both of
definitely,
you.
it's hard because I don't really want to go through the pain of that experiment. I realize that light is just one of the worst things for, your sleep, especially in the morning, because you tend to get that, more REM sleep and better sleep. It's important to get good sleep at the end of the night, and so we've blacked out like literally everything, so it's very, very dark. I don't really want to go through that. Yeah.
Do you share this with the Lark community, and are there other people in a similar? I mean, how many Lark couples are there?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't really surveyed to see, but anecdotally, we've talked to, we like to talk to our users quite a bit, and people say, oh yeah, I bought one and I liked it, and then I bought one for my wife or for my husband. Yeah, I don't remember if we ended up putting this on the website. That would be a pretty interesting thing to see what people respond to.
But buy two this year.
Yep, that's a good one. Buy two, get one.
I bought one for my wife, and it works pretty well.
Great.
It's working well for us.
Good. I'm glad to hear the positive feedback. Glad you didn't say I hate it. Yes.
So just to follow on that, actually, can you do this without asking them anything on a pure data-driven way? Just find pairs that are unusually well correlated? These two people are weighting each other?
So yeah, there are probably some slight privacy concerns, but Alex, who's back there, he's actually our R&D guy, and some of the stuff that he does involves machine learning, so it's definitely an avenue that we're exploring. I don't know if we would, necessarily do it at that level. It's something to explore. I mean, we could probably experiment on our own data, right, internally, and see what that shows. But that's a really good idea. Yep.
It seems to me, okay, I was really bothered when you said this isn't science, because you are doing science. It's just science comes in many flavors.
I'm just not very rigorous.
Okay, observations are rigorous, but they're, whatever. But anyway, I was really interested in, are you thinking about making a higher fidelity signal? Because it sounds like you don't need a lot of this data. What you really need to know is exactly when did it start. Like, that's the point you need to know. Is there a way that you can get that time a little bit closer than when it's a minute? Because a minute's a long time for two people to respond. If you didn't respond in a minute to the other person moving, that's impressive in itself.
Right.
So how can you get past that?
Yeah, we can. It's something that we can tweak, but it's kind of a, it's a very technical thing we have to do on our side. You can adjust the firmware, just tweak a variable and set it to a smaller epoch limit. Yeah, it's something we could do, but
it sounds to me, if this was your question, then what you'd want to do is you just want to record the times of the increased passive threshold.
Right.
And then that would be really interesting for this project.
Yeah, that's actually a better way to approach it. This will be on video, right? So I can go back and review.
Yeah. Are you guys going to do anything about sleep quality? I mean, how do you position, or are you thinking about doing things like Zira? So I have the Zira, the wife has the Lark.
Right.
And so I'm, geeking out on all the sleep quality measures, and that's kind of what I've been using. So how do you see the use case for your product versus theirs, and are you going to evolve in that direction?
Yeah, I think ours tends to be, I think the main differentiator is just ease of use in this case. It's just a lot easier to put a wristband on than to strap something on your head every night. But, I've definitely used the Zio quite a bit, and sometimes I just forget it. But at least the Lark, I can just throw it on, set it, throw it on. It's kind of easy. I think that's why, that's why we push for more, a little bit more of a consumer direction. I think that people really just like something that they can use every day. We've seen our product is very, very sticky. People just use it day in, day out because, it's an alarm clock. It's also, just easy to use. We try to do some pretty basic sleep quality analysis. There's some algorithms that you can apply to whatever stats that we're pulling, whatever sleep patterns that we pull in. But there are limits to actigraphy and what it can do. So we're exploring definitely, and I think some of the stuff that Alex is working on regarding machine learning could show us some like deeper level of data.
So I gave a talk at this at one of maybe first or second Quantified Silicon Valley or at Stanford, comparing the Fitbit and the Zio, which have pretty similar. I mean, the Fitbit and the Lark use essentially the same underlying technology. I don't know about the firmware algorithms and sensitivity of the accelerometers and that kind of thing, but just to answer your question maybe a little bit, I got, or you could look at that talk, I have the data, it's probably on the website or something. I got a lot more sensitive, robust information, it seemed, off the Zero. There were a bunch of wake-up events that the Fitbit didn't catch. Probably because I just like woke up and I'm like, oh, I'm so weird. But I didn't go.
Right, you didn't roll around.
Yeah. But obviously it's much more inconvenient to put it on your head, it falls off easier, and if you combined it with a Lark, it would be, I think it would be kind of weird to be awakened by a vibrating head. It's like an insect, basically. I'd rather have an insect crawling on my arm waking up than an insect crawling on my head waking up. And the time is, we are done with Q&A.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Thanks.